Ever get that feeling like you're just drowning in information?
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you're trying to learn something new.
Right.
There's just so much out there.
It's overwhelming.
It can be totally overwhelming.
For sure.
We've all been using those AI tools like ChatGPT, but sometimes, they just make stuff up or they kind of go off on these weird tangents.
They do. It's a problem.
Well, there's this new kit on the block that's
wow.
designed to kind of fix that.
Okay.
It's called Retrieval Augmented Generation.
Retrieval Augmented Generation.
Or RAG for short.
RAG. Okay. I like it. Short and sweet.
Yeah.
So what's the big deal with RAG? What makes it so different?
Well, what's really fascinating here is that RAG systems are like giving those large language models.
LLMs.
Yeah, the LLMs, like a superpower.
Oh, okay.
They combine the AI's ability to generate text with a direct connection to a massive library of, trusted information.
Interesting. So instead of just hoping the AI has the right info somewhere in its digital brain,
Right.
RAG systems actually give it access to all these external sources.
Exactly.
It's like having a superpowered research librarian at your fingertips or something.
Yes.
But how does that even work? I mean,
Sure. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
it sounds incredibly complex.
Well, imagine taking a huge stack of documents,
I'm picturing it.
articles, research papers, even your own notes, and you're creating like a super detailed index.
Okay. So far, so good.
But it's not just keywords.
Right.
It's more like you're capturing the essence of each chunk of text.
The essence.
Like its meaning.
You're about embeddings, right?
Yeah, embeddings.
Okay, so we're not just storing the words themselves, but like a representation of what they mean.
Exactly.
That must make searching so much smarter.
Oh, absolutely.
But how does it know which chunks are actually relevant to, what I'm looking for?
So think about it like this. Okay, your question also gets transformed into its own embedding, kind of like translating it into the language of meanings, basically.
Okay.
Then the system can find the chunks with the most similar,
Similar what?
meaning fingerprints, I guess you could say.
Meaning fingerprints, that's a cool way to put it.
And crucially, it ranks them.
Ranks them.
So the most relevant stuff, it kind of bubbles up to the top.
Ah, got it. So it's not just a random grab bag of info. It's like the AI is saying, hey, based on what you asked, these are the most important pieces to look at.
Exactly. And then what happens is...
Yeah, what happens next?
It uses a reader.
A reader?
Which is a bit like a filter, basically.
Okay.
It pulls out the most relevant bits from the LLM's output. And it presents them to you in a clear, concise way.
So no more of those rambling AI tangents.
Hopefully not.
That's a relief.
It all sounds amazing, but I'm guessing it's not perfect.
Right.
Are there any places where these RJ systems can trip up?
Well, even the smartest systems have their limits. Researchers have actually found 7 main failure points.
Just 7?
Yeah, 7 main failure points where things can go wrong.
Yeah.
Let's start with the most obvious one. Missing content.
Okay.
What happens if the answer you're looking for just isn't in the database that the RAG system is using? It's like, searching a cookbook for a recipe that's simply not there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're going to come up empty.
I mean, even with all the information out there, there are bound to be gaps.
For sure.
But I'm guessing it's not always so straightforward.
What do you mean?
Does the RAG system, ever try to fake it?
Sometimes, yeah.
Really?
And that's where things can get a little tricky.
Okay.
Because instead of just saying, hey, I don't have enough information to answer that,
right,
it might try to, cobble together something that sounds plausible, but is actually completely off base.
Oh.
Yeah. And this can be a real problem, especially if you're not already an expert on the topic.
So it's like the AI is trying to be helpful.
Right.
But it ends up giving you bad information.
Exactly.
Not ideal.
Not ideal at all.
Yeah.
So what about the other failure points?
Yeah.
What else can go wrong?
Well, sometimes the right information is in the database.
Okay.
But the system just misses it.
It misses it.
How? Imagine having the answer a key to a test, right?
Okay.
But only looking at the first few pages. You might miss some crucial information.
Yeah.
Even though it's technically right there.
I've totally done that before.
It happens to the best of us.
Like skim through something too quickly and miss the important part.
Exactly. So what's causing these systems to overlook the right answers? Well, it could be a couple of things.
Okay.
Sometimes the embedding model, remember those meaning fingerprints we talked about?
Yes.
Sometimes that model isn't quite accurate enough. So the system doesn't actually recognize the best matches.
Okay. Or it could be that the ranking algorithm, the thing that decides which chunks are most important,
Right.
that might be a bit off.
Okay.
So the right information gets buried under a pile of less relevant stuff.
So even with all this fancy technology, there's still room for error.
There's always room for error.
But what happens if the RAGIS system does find the right information?
Okay, yeah, good question.
Is it always smooth sailing from there?
Not necessarily. Another potential pitfall is what researchers call...
what do they call it?
Not in context.
Not in context.
Even if the system finds the right chunks of information.
Right.
It still has to figure out how to put them together in a way that makes sense for the LLM.
Okay.
It's kind of like having all the ingredients for a delicious meal, but not knowing the right recipe to follow.
Yeah, you could end up with a jumbled mess.
Exactly. A jumbled mess instead of a coherent answer.
So it's not just about finding the right information. It's also about presenting it.
Right.
In a way that the LLM can understand.
You got it.
Okay.
The consolidation strategy. That's what they call it, by the way. How the system decides which chunks to use and how to combine them. That's a crucial part of the whole process.
Makes sense.
And if it gets that part wrong, even the best LLM can struggle to produce a meaningful answer.
So there are a lot of moving pieces.
Oh, yeah, lots of moving pieces.
There are a lot of places where things can go wrong.
Definitely. But that's what makes it so interesting to study, right?
Right. We're learning so much about how these systems work and how to make them better.
Exactly. Figuring out how to overcome these challenges, that's where the real breakthroughs happen.
Absolutely. It's like solving a puzzle, isn't it?
It is. It is a very complex, fascinating puzzle.
And the stakes are high.
Oh, absolutely. The potential benefits of RAG systems are huge, but so are the risks if we don't get it right.
Exactly. So we need to proceed with caution, but also with a sense of excitement for what these systems could achieve.
I agree. It's a balancing act, for sure. But the possibilities are just incredible.
Well, let's dive into some real-world case studies to see how these failure points actually play out in practice.
Yeah, let's get concrete. Give me some examples. And even if the RAG system does manage to find the right info and it packages it up perfectly for the LLM, there's still a chance the LLM rep just doesn't get it.
Doesn't get it?
Think of it like this, like you're reading a really complicated instruction manual.
Okay, yeah.
And even though all the words are there, you just can't wrap your head around it.
I've been there.
It's like...
Totally.
That's what researchers call not extracted. It's like the AI is missing that aha moment.
Yeah, like the spark of understanding.
The spark of understanding that connects all the dots.
It's tough, I guess, for an AI to make those connections sometimes.
Precisely. And this often happens when the information is particularly complex or nuanced. And it's one of the big challenges researchers are working on,
What is?
Figuring out how to help LLMs better understand not just the words themselves, but the underlying meaning and connections between them.
Yeah, because I feel like as humans, we take all sorts of things for granted when we're trying to understand something.
Like what?
Our background knowledge, our common sense, even our emotions.
Yeah.
It must be really tough to program all of that into an AI.
It is. But even if the LLM does understand the information perfectly, there's still one more hurdle to clear.
What's that?
Actually getting the answer out in a way that's useful to you.
Yeah.
Have you ever, asked someone for directions and they just give you a vague wave of the hand?
Yeah.
It's frustrating, right? You need specifics.
Totally. I'm a visual learner.
Okay.
So if someone just tells me to, turn left at the big tree, I'm totally lost.
Yeah.
I need landmarks.
Right.
Street names, the whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
I love it. It's the same with RAG systems. Sometimes the LLM might have the right answer in its, digital head, but it just doesn't communicate it effectively.
Like how so?
Maybe it gives you a paragraph when you really need a bulleted list, or it gives you a super technical explanation when you just wanted a simple summary.
Oh, I've totally been there. Trying to troubleshoot a tech issue.
Yeah.
You end up on some forum.
Right.
With a bunch of jargon that you don't understand.
Ugh, it's the worst. And it's like, thanks, but I just wanted to know how to reset my password. Researchers call that the wrong format, failure point.
Wrong format.
And then there's the issue of specificity.
Specificity.
Sometimes the answer is technically correct.
Okay.
But it's either too vague or too specific to be helpful.
Oh, interesting. So
it's like a teacher.
Yeah.
Giving a simple answer when you need, a more detailed explanation. Yeah. Or it's like a student asking a question that's too broad to get a useful response.
Ah, so it's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
What do you mean?
Like, you don't want the answer to be too hot or too cold. You want it to be just right.
Yes, exactly. A perfect analogy. And finally, even if the RAG system nails everything else, there's still the chance that the answer is incomplete.
Incomplete.
You get part of the story, but some key details are missing.
Oh.
Leaving you with more questions than answers.
Wow, that's so frustrating.
It's like watching a movie with the middle act cut out. The beginning and the end, but you're missing all the crucial plot points.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
That connect them.
So it's like getting a sneak peek of a puzzle, but not getting all the pieces.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be especially tricky if you're not already familiar with the topic.
Right, because
you might not even realize that something is missing.
Right, it might just take it at face value.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I know we've been talking a lot about the potential problems.
Yeah, it feels like we've gone down a rabbit hole of...
But don't get discouraged.
Everything that could go wrong.
No, because all of this is incredibly valuable.
Okay.
Because by understanding where these systems can fail, we can actually learn how to make them better.
So it's like each of these failure points is an opportunity to improve the technology.
Precisely. It's like, those classic scientific experiments.
Yeah.
Where you have to rule out all the possible sources of error to get to the truth. So yeah, RAG systems sound incredibly promising, but there are a lot of things that can go wrong along the way.
Right.
But researchers are absolutely working on ways to overcome these challenges.
They are. And how are they doing that?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Let's move on to some real-world case studies.
Okay, ready.
To see how these failure points play out in practice.
Let's get concrete. Give me some examples.
Okay, so one fascinating case study involves a system called Cognitive Reviewer.
Cognitive Reviewer.
It's designed to help researchers, navigate the often overwhelming world of scientific literature. Imagine having to read through hundreds of papers.
Oh, yeah.
To find the most relevant ones for your research question.
I can only imagine.
It's a massive undertaking.
I get stressed out just trying to keep up with my email inbox.
Exactly. So how does Cognitive Reviewer help with that? It's like having a superpowered research assistant.
Okay.
That can scan through all those papers in the blink of an eye and tell you which ones are worth your time.
Sign me up.
Right. So it uses a rank system to identify and rank the most relevant papers.
Based on
a researcher's specific question.
Oh, cool.
And researchers can even ask questions directly about the content of those papers. Like, what were the main findings of this study?
Oh, wow.
Or what are the limitations of this methodology?
That sounds amazing.
It's like having all that knowledge instantly accessible without having to spend hours poring over dense academic texts.
That sounds incredibly powerful. But I'm guessing there are some challenges in building a system like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Like what?
One of the big ones is dealing with the sheer variety of formats that scientific papers come in.
Oh, correct.
PDFs, Word documents, even handwritten notes in some cases. It's not like every paper is neatly formatted in a way that's easy for an AI to understand.
Right, the real world is messy.
It is.
Yeah.
So the system has to be able to handle that messiness.
Right.
And extract the relevant information no matter what format it comes in.
Okay, so that's one challenge. Are there any other hurdles that the Cognitive Reviewer team had to overcome?
One of the biggest challenges is ensuring accuracy.
Accuracy, yeah.
Scientific research is all about precision and rigor, right?
Right.
So the system has to be able to accurately identify and extract the most relevant information from those papers.
Makes sense.
A small error in understanding could have big consequences downstream.
You wouldn't want a researcher to base their work on faulty information just because the AI misunderstood something in a paper.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of the research is focused.
On what?
Developing robust evaluation methods to assess the accuracy and reliability of these systems. It's not just about getting the right answer.
Right.
It's about being confident that the answer is correct.
So it's about building trust in the system.
Yeah.
Researchers need to know that they can rely on the information that Cognitive Reviewer is giving them.
You got it.
Okay.
And that's a challenge that applies to all RAG systems. Not just those designed for scientific research. Let's move on to another case study that highlights a different set of challenges.
Okay, what's next?
This one takes us into the world of education. Imagine a world where students have access to a 247 tutor.
Wow.
they can answer any question they have about their coursework.
Okay.
No matter how complex or nuanced.
That sounds like a dream.
That's the vision behind a system called AI Tutor.
AI Tutor. So is this another AI system?
It is.
Okay. But instead of scientific papers,
right,
what is it using for its knowledge base?
AI Tutor draws its knowledge from a variety of sources related to a specific course, like lecture videos, textbooks, even online forums where students discuss the material.
Oh, wow. So it's like having all the best study resources consolidated into one super smart AI tutor.
You got it. But I'm guessing it's not as simple as just plugging in all that information and letting the AI go to work.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges there?
One of the big challenges is dealing with different formats of information. Transcribing video lectures into text that the AI can understand is a huge undertaking in itself.
Right. AI can't just watch a video and understand it the way we do.
Nope.
It needs that information converted into a format it can process. What about other challenges?
And another big one is ensuring that the AI is not just giving students the right answers, but explaining those answers in a way that promotes understanding.
So it's not just about information retrieval, it's about pedagogy.
Exactly.
About, like, effective teaching.
And that's a complex challenge because it requires the AI to understand how students learn. And what types of explanations are most effective for different types of learners.
Yeah, because different people learn in different ways, so the AI needs to be able to adapt to those individual needs. It sounds like AI Tutor is pushing the boundaries of what's possible with RAG systems.
It really is.
Okay, what about our final case study?
For our last stop, we're venturing into the complex and ever-evolving world of biomedicine.
Biomedicine.
Imagine having access to a system that can answer your most pressing health questions. Drawing on a vast database of medical research and clinical trials.
I mean, that sounds incredible. It's like having a personal medical advisor who's up to date on the latest research.
Exactly.
That could be incredibly valuable, I think, for both patients and healthcare providers. But I'm guessing it's also incredibly challenging to build a system like that.
You're telling me.
Where do you even begin?
Well, it starts with a massive data set, like the BioACU data set, which contains a vast collection of biomedical research articles, clinical trial data, even patient records.
Wow.
But the challenge is not just storing all that information. It's making sure the AI can actually understand and process it. Medical language can be incredibly complex and nuanced. And even a small misunderstanding could have serious consequences.
Right. You wouldn't want the AI to, like, misinterpret a medical term and give someone inaccurate or even dangerous advice.
Exactly. So how do they ensure that the AI is accurately understanding and interpreting all that complex medical information? Well, that's one of the big focuses of research in this area, developing sophisticated natural language processing techniques that can handle the intricacies of medical terminology. It's not just about recognizing words. It's about understanding the context and relationships between those words.
So it's like teaching the AI to think like a doctor.
Exactly.
To be able to analyze and synthesize complex medical information.
That's it. And that requires a deep understanding of both language and medicine. It's a truly interdisciplinary field, which makes it both challenging and exciting.
These case studies have been fascinating. It's clear that RTI systems have the potential to revolutionize a wide range of fields. From scientific research to education to healthcare.
It's pretty amazing.
But I'm also struck by the complexity
Yeah.
and the challenges involved in building these systems. It's not just about plugging in an AI and letting it go to work. It requires a deep understanding of both the technology and the domain it's being applied to.
You've hit the nail on the head. And that's why research in this area is so important. We need to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with RAG systems. But we also need to be mindful of the potential pitfalls and challenges along the way.
Okay, so we've explored how RTI systems work, the potential failure points, and some real-world examples of how these systems are being developed and applied. What are some key takeaways for our listeners who are trying to wrap their heads around this technology? What do they really need to understand about RAG systems?
Well, one crucial takeaway is that RAG systems are not a silver bullet. They're powerful tools, but they're not perfect. We need to be aware of the potential failure points and the limitations of these systems so that we can use them effectively and responsibly.
That makes sense, yeah. We can't just blindly trust the output of any AI system, no matter how sophisticated it seems. What else should listeners keep in mind?
Another important point is that RAG systems are still under development. There's a lot of exciting research happening in this area, and we can expect to see significant advancements in the coming years. So it's important to stay informed about the latest developments and to be critical of the claims being made about these systems. Not everything you read or hear about RA systems is necessarily accurate or reliable.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in the hype.
Oh, yeah. But it's important to remember that this is still a relatively new technology with a lot of room for improvement. What are some of the key areas where research is focused? Where are the biggest opportunities for advancement in RX systems? Well, one area of active research is focused on improving those, meaning fingerprints we talked about earlier.
Yeah, the embeddings.
The embeddings that capture the essence of each piece of information. The more accurately those embeddings reflect the true meaning of the texts,
right,
the better the RX system will be at finding and retrieving the most relevant information.
So it's about making those embeddings as precise and nuanced as possible so that the AI can really understand the meaning behind the words?
Exactly. And another area of research is focused on developing better consolidation strategies.
Consolidation strategies, right?
The methods that the RX system uses to select and combine the most relevant information for the LLM.
Right.
The goal is to find the sweet spot between giving the LLM enough context to understand the question and overwhelming it with too much information.
So it's about finding the right balance, making sure the LLM has the information it needs without getting bogged down in irrelevant details.
Precisely. And a third area of research is focused on improving the LLMs themselves.
Okay.
The engines that power these RAD systems. The better the LLM is at understanding and processing language, the more accurate and reliable the answers will be.
This all seems incredibly promising. It seems like there's a lot of potential for RAG systems to really change the way we access and utilize information. But I'm also curious about the bigger picture. What are some of the broader implications of this technology?
Ooh, yeah.
How might RAG systems change the world as they become more sophisticated and widespread?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And one that researchers and policymakers are grappling with right now. As RAG systems become more integrated into our lives, they have the potential to transform a wide range of fields.
Like what?
From education and healthcare to scientific research and even entertainment.
Okay, so let's dive into some of those potential impacts. Where do you see our RAG systems having the biggest impact?
Well, in education, our RAG systems could personalize learning in ways that were never before possible. Imagine a world where every student has access to a customized learning experience.
Wow.
That's tailored to their individual needs and interests.
That's an incredible vision. It could truly democratize education.
It could.
And make high-quality learning accessible to everyone, regardless of their background or circumstances.
I agree. And in healthcare, our RAG systems could revolutionize the way we diagnose and treat diseases. Imagine a world where doctors have access to an AI-powered assistant that can analyze vast amounts of medical data and provide personalized treatment recommendations.
That sounds like something out of a science fiction movie. It could potentially save countless lives and improve the quality of care for millions of people. What about other areas?
Well, in scientific research, RAG systems could accelerate the pace of discovery by helping researchers sift through vast amounts of data and identify promising new avenues of inquiry. And in the business world, RH systems could help companies make better decisions by providing them with real-time insights into market trends and customer behavior.
It sounds like RH systems have the potential to touch nearly every aspect of our lives.
They do, but with great power comes great responsibility.
Right, exactly. What are some of the ethical considerations that we need to keep in mind as we develop and deploy these systems?
That's a crucial question.
Yeah.
And one that we need to be asking ourselves constantly as we move forward with this technology. One of the big concerns is the potential for bias in these systems. If the data that's used to train a RAG system is biased,
right,
the system itself will be biased, and that could have serious consequences for the people who rely on its output.
So it's not just about making these systems accurate, it's also about making sure they're fair and equitable.
You got it. We need to be very careful about the data we use to train these systems. And we need to develop methods for detecting and mitigating bias. Another concern is the potential for job displacement.
Right. And that's a common fear, I think.
Yeah.
With any new technology that automates tasks previously done by humans, are there certain jobs that are particularly vulnerable to being replaced by our RAG systems?
It's difficult to say for sure, but jobs that involve a lot of information processing and retrieval are certainly at risk.
Oh.
However, it's important to remember that AI is a tool, And like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill. It's up to us to decide how we want to use this technology.
Right.
And to make sure that it's used in a way that benefits all of humanity.
That's a powerful message. It's not about the technology itself, but about how we choose to use it. We need to be thoughtful and responsible in our approach to AI development and deployment.
Absolutely.
And we need to make sure that these systems are used in a way that aligns with our values and goals as a society.
I completely agree. And it's a conversation that needs to involve everyone, not just scientists and engineers. We need to engage with policymakers, ethicists, and the public at large to ensure that AI development is guided by ethical principles and that its benefits are shared widely.
This has been an incredible deep dive into RAG systems. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From the technical details of how these systems work to the potential impact they could have on our world. What are some key takeaways that you want our listeners to remember about RAG systems?
Well, first and foremost, I want them to remember that RAG systems are powerful tools with the potential to transform the way we access and utilize information. But they're not perfect.
Right.
And we need to be aware of their limitations and potential pitfalls.
So it's about informed optimism. We should be excited about the possibilities, but also realistic about the challenges.
Exactly. And secondly, I want them to remember that AI development is an ongoing process, and we all have a role to play in shaping its future. We need to stay informed, ask critical questions, and engage in conversations about the ethical implications of this technology. The future of AI is not predetermined. It's up to us to decide what kind of world we want to create with it.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic, so be sure to tune in.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, knowledge is power, so keep learning and keep asking questions.
It's amazing to think about all the ways RAG systems could change the world.
It is. It is.
But I keep coming back to this idea of responsibility. We've talked about the potential for bias and the impact on jobs. But what about privacy?
Privacy,
That's a big one. With all this information being accessed and processed, how do we make sure people's personal data is protected?
That's a critical question. And it's one that's at the forefront of a lot of discussions around AI ethics. RAG systems, by their very nature, rely on vast amounts of data.
Right.
And some of that data could be very sensitive.
Sensitive? How so?
Think about medical records, financial transactions.
Oh, yeah.
Or even just your browsing history.
Right. It's not just about keeping credit card numbers safe.
No.
It's about protecting all sorts of information that people might not want shared.
Exactly. It's about respecting people's right to privacy in a digital age.
So how do we strike that balance between using this powerful technology and respecting people's right to privacy?
Well, it starts with transparency. People need to know what data is being collected, how it's being used, and who has access to it. And they need to have a say in how their data is used. It's not enough to just have a privacy policy buried somewhere on a website.
Right.
We need to make sure that people understand the implications of using these systems. And that they have meaningful control over their own data.
So it's about informed consent.
Exactly. People need to be able to opt in or opt out of having their data used in these systems.
And what about, like, data breaches?
Good point. It's also about security.
Okay.
We need to make sure that these systems are designed with privacy and security in mind from the ground up. We need to have strong safeguards in place to protect against data breaches and misuse.
Right. So it's not just about protecting people from hackers. It's also about protecting them from the companies and organizations that are building and using these systems.
Exactly.
It's like building a house.
Okay.
You wouldn't just focus on making it look nice.
Right.
You'd also want to make sure it has a strong foundation and solid walls to protect the people inside.
That's a great analogy.
And then what happens if something does go wrong?
Like a data breach.
Yeah, like if there's a data breach or if someone's privacy is violated.
Yeah, well, then it's about accountability.
Accountability.
There needs to be a clear process for investigating what happened and holding those responsible accountable.
Right. We can't just shrug our shoulders and say, oh, well, that's technology for you.
Exactly. We need to have clear lines of responsibility. And we need to make sure that there are consequences for those who violate people's privacy.
So it's like any other area of life. There need to be rules and regulations to ensure that things are done fairly and ethically.
I agree. It sounds like we've got a lot of work to do.
We do.
To ensure that RAG systems are developed and deployed in a way that respects people's privacy.
Yeah. But I feel like we can get there, right?
Oh, I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
That we can find the right balance. The key is to have these conversations early on, to bring together experts from different fields,
Like who?
Technologists, ethicists, legal scholars, policymakers, to develop frameworks and guidelines that protect privacy without stifling innovation.
Right, because we don't want to stop progress.
No.
But we want to make sure that it's done responsibly.
Exactly.
We can't wait until there's a major privacy scandal. Right.
To start thinking about these issues.
Absolutely. We need to be having these conversations now while these technologies are still being developed.
And we need to make sure that those conversations are inclusive.
What do you mean?
Like, we need to hear from a diverse range of voices, not just, the usual suspects in the tech industry. We need to hear from people who might be most affected by these technologies.
Right.
People from marginalized communities, people who might not have a lot of technical expertise, but who have valuable insights to share.
I agree.
This has been an incredible deep dive into RREG systems. We've covered so much ground today, from the technical details to the ethical considerations. And it's clear that this is a technology with immense potential, but also some real challenges that we need to address. As we wrap up, what's one final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that RGID systems, like all AI technologies, are tools.
Tools, yeah.
They can be used for good or for ill.
And it's up to us to decide how we want to use them. We need to be thoughtful, responsible, and above all, ethical in our approach to AI development and deployment.
That's a powerful message. The future of AI is not predetermined.
It's not.
It's up to us to shape it.
I like that. It's up to us to shape it.
So let's make sure we shape it wisely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic, so be sure to tune in.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a future where AI benefits all of humanity.